Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
When her vision cleared up, she was surprised to see how much of New York had actually been repaired. While there were still plenty of buildings that were collapsed, most of the shops and houses are up and running. Currently, she was back in her original form, so a few could recognize her. Just as she stepped out of the teleport shrine, she saw a familiar face. "Yo, Liam. Long time no see." Shiro grinned and gave him a slight wave. "Emin? Oh, Shiro. It's been a while, and wow, you're already level 60. Liam praised in surprise. "Haha, I've had a few fortuitous encounters after all." Shiro replied with a smile. "I see, wait a moment. Since when could you speak?" Liam tilted his head. From his memories, she had been mute and only used her phone to communicate. "How about that? You see, my voice was fixed when I classed up." Shiro chuckled. "That makes sense. Class ups do change your body ever so little after all. Who knows, maybe next class will make you into a mature woman." Liam laughed. I wish. If her next class didn't make her mature, she was seriously going to question if her body belonged to Kuromi or not. From the images that she's seen, Kuromi definitely had a good figure and not a washing board like the current her. After chatting for a little longer, Shiro bid Liam goodbye and made her way to Helian's workshop. Arriving at the location, she saw that his shop was closed and that there was a notice for a leave. "Is anyone home?" Shiro called out while trying to look for an entrance. "Look at the sign, the shop is closed." Helian's voice called out from inside the shop. Grinning to herself slightly, Shiro entered the rift and phased through the shop. Hiding herself in the corner, she saw Helion hammering away at a piece of armor. Helion LVL 53 Hephaestus chosen. Hephaestus? Isn't that the Greek god of blacksmithing? He's actually managed to get a class with a god's name in the title. Shiro widened her eyes. Now that she saw his class, she finally realized why he could even have a shot at creating red-grade equipment. After all, Hephaestus wasn't known as the god of blacksmithing for no reason. If he couldn't even make red-grade armor, he shouldn't be called a god. Creeping up on him, Shiro tapped him lightly on the shoulder. "TCH, I said that the shop is close." Looking at Shiro, Helion paused in a trance. It had been a while since he had last seen her, so her recent appearance was something he hadn't seen yet. "Boo," Shiro grinned. "Wait, you can talk now?" "Yup. I got my voice back a while ago. I just never had the chance to talk to you since." Shiro chuckled and pulled over a chair for her to sit on. "Damn, heavens really favor you, huh? You have both the looks and voice." Helion chuckled. "Perhaps. By the way, is it possible for me to use this as a replacement for the B-grade power-up item?" Shiro asked, handing him the Tier 4 suppression field. Perhaps, but I'm not sure. Since the main effect of this item is to suppress, I don't know if it will help elevate your armor to the red grade. I'll try though." Helion furrowed his brows. "Well, that's fine. I'm in a troublesome situation right now, so I can't exactly use my B-rank power-up item as a gamble." She smiled wearily. "Haha, don't worry about it. I was thinking that a B-rank power-up item may be difficult for you to get, so I've tried to think of a way to upgrade it without the help of the B-ranked item." Helion waved his hand. "Oh, what grade did they reach?" "Purple plus. I'm just a small bit away from reaching orange grade with this method. However, with the hammer that I got with my class up, I should be able to compensate for the difference." Helion smiled and showed her his new hammer. God Hephaestus's hammer, 5/5 uses. The personal hammer of the blacksmithing god. As you are not at his level, you can only tap into a small portion of the power that resides within this hammer. As the chosen one, you must make the most out of this hammer and gain Hephaestus's recognition. Soul-bound, Helion. You only have 5 uses of this item though. Are you sure you want to use one of them on my armor?" Shiro asked with a frown. "Just think of this as training. I need to use it in the future anyways. Might as well use it for a friend." Helion smiled. "I owe you one then." Shiro smiled. Unequipping her armor, she laid it on the workshop table along with all the materials that she had collected. "Now then, I should probably crack on." Helion cracked his neck and stretched his body. "Do you want to do this in a dungeon first? Upgrading an armor to red grade may cause quite the phenomenon, you know." Shiro asked. "Will it?" "Yeah, I'm pretty sure that when you classed up into your class, there should have been quite the phenomenon, right?" Shiro raised an eyebrow. "That's true. It's also the reason I'm leaving this city. Everyone knows about my class, so the factions are making their way here. Helion scratched his cheek embarrassingly. Heis, I'm not surprised. Getting a god in your class name is pretty much a miracle, you know? Here, this might help you a little. Shiro sighed and passed him a disguise orb. Oh my, this will definitely help out. Helion smiled and changed his name tag. You can also change your appearance since everyone here knows of your class. Nodding his head, Helion changed his appearance so that A resembled an average man with a blacksmithing class. So we're doing this in a dungeon then? He asked, while storing all of the equipment he needed in his inventory. Naturally, he needed to take out some things to make room for all the tools. Yeah, I'll protect you while you forge. Shiro nodded while looking at the pile of items that he had placed aside. She noticed a small pile of what seemed to be blue-grade-ass plates which piqued her curiosity. Those are, she asked. Oh, them. Custom orders for people that had moved out of the city and gone elsewhere. Helion replied. You still get orders for them? Shiro raised an eyebrow. Of course, while we may not get much news about your ass-piercing ways recently, the image has already been embedded to those that had seen you in action. Plus, the ass plates surprisingly don't conflict with the other armor pieces, so that's extra defense. At this point, even those that haven't seen your ways, which I doubt, would be buying this to get more stats. Helion replied with a smile. I see. Interesting, I might ask for one as well since it gives extra stats. Shiro rubbed her chin in interest. Haha, I'll have to spend extra time in making a good enough plate for you then. Helion smiled as he finished packing. Now then, shall we go? He asked with a smile. Leading Helion to the level 21 frag ant's burrow, Shiro tapped her finger on the cave walls. Freeze, she commanded. Asterisk, boom. KRRR. Ice exploded out from her fingertips and froze over the entire floor with ease. Jesus Christ. I kind of feel sorry for the ants, you know. They don't even know what hit them. Helion muttered. Well, they caused me a bit of annoyance before when I came here. Especially that queen. Shiro replied with a smile. Setting down his equipment, Helion placed Shiro's armor on the table and took a deep breath. Asterisk, boom. As if opening the floor gates, mana surged towards him and gathered around his armor. Pulling out Hephaestus's hammer, Helion bit his finger and traced it along the handle. Awaken, he commanded. Asterisk, FUU. Fire exploded out around him and gathered around the hammer. While this was happening, an illusionary figure overlapped Helion's body as Shiro guessed that this was an image of the blacksmithing god himself. You might want to stay back a little for this, Helion warned. Nodding her head, Shiro followed his instructions. She could clearly see the cave wall slowly melt from the temperature. Tensing his muscles, Helion slammed the hammer into the armor. Asterisk, boom. A wave of energy shot out from this hit as Shiro was forced back a little. Well, damn, she thought in surprise at the prowess. Looking at Helion hammering away at the armor while a torrent of energy was being pushed out with every hit, Shiro could only wait for the outcome patiently and hope that it would turn out okay. Hammering away at the armor, sweat dripped off Helion's face. Every hit on the armor would purify and enhance the foundations ever so slightly. Should he fail to control the power behind the hit, it would only cause damage and cause the upgrade to fail. Stomping down with his foot, he sent the materials into the air and had them converge towards the armor. While this was happening, Shiro furrowed her brows. The mana's becoming violent. If this continues, I don't think Helion would be able to control the mana enough for him to upgrade the armor. She thought to herself, as much as she wanted to help, should she interfere, it would only increase the chance of failure. TCH. Clicking her tongue in annoyance, she stepped back a bit more and watched patiently. It was unknown how long this would take, so Shiro decided to do something productive. After all, spending several hours watching Helion upgrade her armor was a waste of time. She could easily use this to train her newly acquired martial arts. Sitting down on the floor, she calmed her mind. As she had previously stated, the first stage was to know oneself, and hesitation would fade from her movements. Who am I as a person? She mused to herself. In one sense, she has multiple personas that she likes to wear. Even her main one was a byproduct of her taking things lightheartedly so that her mind can relax from all the serious things in life. As one who was betrayed and experimented on, Her mental state was always in a state of seriousness where she was suspicious of everyone. When she first became friends with Lyrica, that was her trying to change herself back and enjoy life now that she had a second chance. But the serious side of her knew that if she was to just relax, she could be killed at any moment. Life was like a Venus flytrap. It'll lure you with a sweet scent only to then consume you. While she could say that all of it was her as a being, that wasn't answering the question of the heart seriously. If she was to slowly chip away at this collectiveness, she'll be left with a single element that defines her most basic trait, which is the foundation of everything that she chooses to do. Should that foundation be optimism, it will mean that she had done everything out of the kindness of her heart and believed that everyone was good, which she could say was complete and utter bullshit. Should she be truly kind, then she would have never taken up the sword and slaughter all those that opposed her. Then was it anger? That wasn't it either. If her basic principle was anger, then she would have never extended a helping hand to Lyrica. If neither the good nor the evil was her, then what was she? Flawed avenger. She muttered softly with a smile. She is one that wishes to bathe in the blood of her killer and yet desires a normal, peaceful life, which is why she befriended Lyrica. But she knew that normal and peaceful were impossible for her since these are the very things that she fears. In order to obtain these, she'll have to give up her power and control, two that she held close to her heart as she hated the very thought of being unable to do anything. The last time she had a normal and peaceful life, she was captured and subjected to torture. With one side of her that desired violence and hatred, and another that wished to cherish things that she had obtained, she was flawed to the point of being the very thing that had the biggest chance of destroying everything she held dear because of her nature as an avenger. As she continued to ponder about her nature, she decided that her most prominent nature was none other than that of a berserker. I am a berserker that treads the path of blood to reach my enemy. I have long given up the concept of normality to chase for more power. I search for allies to stand by my side so that I can increase the chances of achieving my vengeful desire. She muttered with a smile. A blood-red radiance was slowly emitted from her body as she opened her eyes. Is that really true? A foreign voice whispered in her ear. Furrowing her brows, Shiro looked around in suspicion. Before she could answer, she received several notifications regarding her choice of nature. Ancient Heart Enlightenment - Berserker Heart. Style Azura's Path - Path of Ascendance. Path of Ascendance, Berserker Path gained. For Truth Paths discovered. Phantom Path, Truth of the Hidden World. Azura Sword Path, Truth of Weapons. Celestial Path, Truth of Magic. Berserker Path, Truth of the Heart. Title gained, Seeker of Truths. Seeker of Truths, Stage 4. Whenever you use a martial art associated with one of the truths, you temporarily gain a 10% increase in stats. Stages correspond to the number of truths you've discovered. The higher the stage, the bigger the stat increase. Surprised at the sheer amount of notifications that she received, she took a moment to sort it all out. So I've evolved style Azura's Path to Path of Ascendance. Not only does the effects of my martial arts increase, but the risk of losing myself to Fifth Phantom has also disappeared. I can most likely synergize the Fifth Phantom with the new Berserker Path to amplify the benefits. She thought to herself in surprise. To think that understanding a single martial arts manual of this quality could bring so many benefits. On top of removing the danger of Fifth Phantom, she had gained a title that improved her stats temporarily whenever she used her martial arts. This encouraged her to seek out more martial art manuals of the same quality or higher so that she could discover more truths. Looking down at her phone, she was surprised to see that 3 hours had passed and Helion was still trying to upgrade her armor. However, she realized something shocking. He's using so much mana that this place can barely recover to keep up with demand. She widened her eyes in surprise. Pausing in his swing, Helion's figure swayed for a moment as he gritted his teeth and slammed the hammer down one last time. Asterisk bang. His body was sent flying backwards as Shiro quickly intercepted him and stopped him from slamming against the wall. How is it? She asked while looking at the glowing set of armor that was being drowned in an endless torrent of flames. I don't know. It's in the final stage and all I can do is hope that the preparation was sufficient. Helion replied. He had no more strength in his body and could barely keep his eyes open. I see. Waiting in silence, they watched the armor closely, hoping that the upgrade would be a success. Asterisk crack. A sudden fracture split across the armor as Shiro widened her eyes. Quickly slamming her palm into the ground, ice erupted out from around the cave and set up several walls of ice between them and the armor. Asterisk boom. Exploding into thousands of pieces, the energy that was released by the explosion shattered the defensive walls one by one. Clicking her tongue, Shiro added more mana to the remaining walls, reinforcing them as much as she could. Asterisk ping 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 ping. Smashing through her defenses, the explosion soon lost its momentum with only 2 walls left to destroy. Ice. Signing in relief, Shiro thawed the ice and saw the charred aftermath of the explosion. Sorry, it seems like the upgrade was a failure. Helion smiled bitterly. It's fine. It was a gamble to begin with. Shiro shook her head. With her armor shattering into 1,000 pieces, there was no way that she could use it again. Well, I guess I'll have to farm in some dungeons so that I can get some armor pieces to use until I find the next set armor. She sighed. Letting Helion recover, they made their way out of the charred dungeon. Give me a day or so. I'll try to make you a purple grade armor as a replacement, Helion suggested. Don't push yourself too much. It's the thought that counts. Shiro smiled. I understand, but I will try regardless. He shook his head in determination. Making their way back to the workshop, Shiro saw a woman standing in front of the door with a small smile. Long time no see. Aram smiled as her eyes were focused on Shiro, letting Helion rest on the bed. Aram gestured for Shiro to follow her for a bit. So you had a question for me? Shiro asked with a smile. Amen. Let's choose elsewhere since this isn't exactly the best place for the talk. Aram replied. As Shiro was following behind Aram, she looked at Aram's stats to see how she was doing. Aram LVL 54 Armageddon Battlemage. Raising an eyebrow, Shiro was surprised at Aram's class. From her estimates, she had been trying to get the veteran source mage. For her to change her choice at the end, it must mean that it was a hidden class. She probably obtained some good items for her to class up then. Shiro smiled since that was what had happened to her. Due to the items that she received from the quest, she had unlocked her Mystic Sylph Queen hidden class. If it wasn't for her items, she would have gotten the corrupted elemental Sylph and might not have come into contact with Nimue or Azul. Arriving at what seems to be Aram's new apartment, Shiro followed her in. So can we talk now? Shiro asked with a smile. Amen. Be straight with me. Who are you? Aram narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? I had amnesia before I came to New York, so I don't know anything. Shiro shrugged. We both know that it is a lie. If it wasn't, why would you have such a big reaction towards this item? Aram placed the broken statue of the light hero onto the table. This was same statue that Shiro had broken when they visited the underwater ruins back in Kairosa. I just didn't like the face of the statue. It reminded me of someone I despise. Shiro responded while glancing at the statue. Is that so? Then explain to me. Why is it that after I classed up, you are most definitely the creepiest person that I have ever met? Aram narrowed her eyes. After classing up, she had an active skill where she could see the nature of people as a figure over their bodies. For the nature of Shiro, she could see a shrouded figure of black fog looming over her body with a part of blood-red eyes. Asterisk KRK. Aram heard a cracking sound as the fog revealed its teeth and curved its lips into a maniacal grin. Closing her eyes for a moment, she deactivated her skill and looked back at Shiro. What are you trying to say? Shiro chuckled softly as she knew that Aram was onto something. Flexing her fingers a little, a tiny trail of ice started to freeze towards Aram's feet undetected. I'm just curious. If my guesses are correct, then the dungeons are more than what they seem. They're not fabrications of the imagination, but rather fragments from different worlds. For this statue, it came from the world of Arya, and I'm guessing that you're a monster from Arya as well. Ho, that's a rather bold claim, don't you think? You might accidentally offend someone you know. Shiro kept her smile, but her eyes were serious. While I do admit that it's a rather bold claim, I have reasons as to why I think it is. If it wasn't the case, then how can you explain everything that you've done along with other factors? One of these is the fact that my last requirement for class up was that I be friends with a C-classed intelligent monster. Out of all the C-class people that I know, their backgrounds check out, which only left you. A girl who literally appeared out of nowhere one day. It just so happened that when you arrived in New York, a monster was filled under the name of Shino. There's a big chance that the name is a mistake, so I based it off of the monster information instead. A snow girl that had the power to kill a boss all by herself. When we first met, you were an ice mage that couldn't talk and had a lot of power for someone of your level. Isn't it so coincidental that everything checks out rather well? Aram smiled while resting her chin on her hand. If that's the case, then I'm sure you know that you're in a lot of danger should I be said monster. Possibly, but after knowing you for quite a while, I believe that you're not like the rest of the monsters. Plus, the only reason that I'm confronting you about this is because I'm curious about other worlds. I want to know the reason for Dungeon's appearance, why the world had changed, and most importantly, could monsters just be a form of reincarnation like what the Hindus believe in? Rebirth based on karma. Aram replied. So you desire knowledge? Shiro asked. Indeed. I tried to become a veteran source mage since it is rumored that the highest form of that class tree will show you the truth of mana. Why is it omnipresent, and why does it regenerate so fast? Don't you find it weird? How some areas have more mana while others don't? Should the world be classified as an open room and the mana is air, it's almost impossible for one side to have more air than the other. If this is the case, then is the mana being controlled by someone? Who could be so powerful as to supply the entire world with mana? To begin with, what even is mana? Why does it seem inexhaustible? Huh? Like I care. Shiro leaned back nonchalantly. I don't care about questions like that. You can say that I'm taking it for granted, but what's the point of finding out? If you understand everything, life will be boring. Knowing the source of all things will only remove the mystery and beauty of life. Shiro smiled and stood up. Aram looked at her in confusion since she believed that finding out about the truth had always been a core foundation of humans. They wished to fill the gap in knowledge which bugs them so. However, seeing that Shiro had no desire to fill in that gap of knowledge, Aram could only sigh. Say, is the offer to join the party still available? She asked with a smile. Oh, you still want to join despite believing that I'm a monster? Are you not afraid that this may bite you back? Shiro narrowed her eyes. When has there been no risks in the world? Plus, if I follow you, who I believe to have come from a different world and is a monster, I may be able to see things I never thought possible. Aram chuckled. Then let me warn you now. The chance of death is quite high should you make the wrong choices. I'm willing to take the chance. Aram replied fearlessly. Despite the fact that Shiro's nature was something so ominous, it was surprisingly docile, as if Shiro had control over it and kept it on a chain. In order to fuel her curiosity along with other things, she wanted to follow Shiro for now. In that case, then I welcome you aboard. We're currently in the elven capital of Miriel, and I only came back recently because I needed Helion to upgrade one of my armors. Unfortunately, now that my armor has been broken into 1,000 pieces, I'll have to go to a raid or farm dungeons so that I can get some new pieces of armor. Shiro shrugged her shoulders. She didn't mind having Aram in the party since she was a strong mage. Even if she found out about her being a monster, the moment she tries to sabotage the party in Miriel, she'll be dealt with accordingly. Should the result of her sabotage put them in a near-death situation, she'll dispose of regardless of their past connection. So, does the party have a name? Aram asked curiously. A name? Yeah. We can't just be called a party by other people now, can we? Aram replied as if it was a matter of fact. Pausing for a short moment, Shiro wondered what kind of name they should have. In her past life, the party she was in had always been known as the Hero's Party. There was no need for a name since everyone knew of the party since the hero was the leader. What shall we be called? Shiro wondered herself. We should discuss this with the others. But for now, how does Valtrana sound? Shiro smiled. In Arya, Valtrana was what people had called heretics that went against God. As she was nurturing party members to stand beside her when she finally faces the light hero, or rather, the light god, Valtrana was a fitting name. Valtrana. Aram tilted her head slightly. Yeah, it's just a name that popped into my head. Anyways, I'm going back to check up on Helion. He might have recovered a bit now, Shiro said while stretching her body. I'll follow you after I packed up a little. I still have a bunch of stuff here after all. Aram gestured to the ridiculous amounts of tailoring equipment in the other room. You're going to be bringing all of that. Shiro raised an eyebrow. Yeah? I mean, while I am a mage, I'm also a tailor, you know. Aram chuckled. Fair enough. Just message me when you're done, okay? Got it. Leaving Aram's apartment, Shiro sighed a little. I'll have to be a bit more careful with how I conduct myself when I'm in the presence of other people. She mused to herself. She couldn't fully answer Aram's question just yet because while she considers her a friend, they're not close enough for her to reveal herself. But once they party up more often, she'll have a better understanding of Aram and reveal the truth to her then. But honestly, monsters being the reincarnation of people with bad karma, is that even possible? She asked herself. From what she had seen so far, it happened twice. Once with her, and the second time with Kamner. With just these two as evidence, she couldn't prove the theory. But the possibility was there. Looking back at the apartment, she curved her lips into a smile and walked away. ####. After making sure that Helion was feeling better, she decided to spend the night over in New York since Helion wanted to make some armor. In regards to materials, Helion offered to pay for everything himself as compensation for breaking her set armor. Seeing how adamant he was in regard to this, Shiro could only smile and nod. By the next morning, he had prepared 3 pieces of good quality armor for her. Unnamed chest piece LVL 65 blue plus 1000 int, plus 200 def. Unnamed helmet LVL 65 blue plus 700 int. Unnamed boots LVL 65 blue plus 1200 AGI. While they had no skills or effects, they gave her a decent boost in stats. It couldn't compare to what she had before, but they will work for now. Only blue plus. Helion frowned slightly. Haha, don't worry about it. You can spend more time to make me some better armor later. Shiro smiled. Alright, just you wait. Since I've gotten a god's name in my class, it would be shameful if I can't make the best armor in the world. Helion grinned. Of course, I look forward to you making the highest grade of armor. Dumbass, you'll have to make sure that your level is high enough first. Don't think that you failed this time is because you were too weak. Aram chipped in with a smirk. That might be the case. Helion scratched his cheek embarrassingly. Don't worry about it. I was a bit hasty anyway since the situation is a little problematic in Muriel. Shiro chuckled. Wait, what do you mean? Aram raised an eyebrow. You see, we are basically against the whole country right now. Shiro smiled innocently. Aram paused for a moment as her brain tried to comprehend what Shiro had just said. So you're telling me that you somehow provoked a country? She asked dubiously. Yup. Can I ask how? Aram massaged her eyes. She knew that Shiro was a troublemaker with the amount of insane things that she does, but this was not within her expectations. Well, Lyrica is elven royalty. Her 3 brothers want to kill each other, and the factions want some power over the country. To keep Lyrica safe, we'll be against 3 princes. Shiro replied, boiling down the current situation. Can't you just take Lyrica elsewhere? If she just kept running, I'm pretty sure that they'll lose interest in her eventually and leave her be. Aram raised an eyebrow. Even if Lyrica was royalty, if she showed no interest and left the continent, then they shouldn't pursue her too much. Now, that is a great idea should I thought of it sooner. Unfortunately, I have a few things that require my attention in the country, so I can't eject myself out of this situation now. Shiro chuckled. She realized that if they stayed neutral and did nothing, they wouldn't need to worry about the elves. Seems like I unconsciously justified my desire to fight, she thought to herself since she knew that she was a muscle brain at times. Heis, is it too late to leave the party? Aram sighed. Nope, you can leave if you want. Aram paused since she didn't expect Shiro to be so straightforward. I think I'll stay. Plus, I wonder if the elves have any information regarding the dungeons. If I can get access to their library, I can probably do more research. Oh, don't worry about that. I can go to their library at any time. Shiro reassured. That's reassuring. Aram nodded. Speaking of the elves, Helion, I heard about a Lalababa. Shiro grinned. Lalababa. Helion raised an eyebrow. Yeah? Her name is Saika, and she's quite famous in Muriel apparently. PFT. Haha. Helion, isn't that the name of the girl that you fell in love with back then? Aram laughed after hearing her name. Wait, what? Shiro looked at Aram in surprise. I think Helions told you about him falling in love with a married woman that looked young, right? Well, her name was Saika, and I remember playing around with her in our childhood quite a bit. Aram grinned and looked at the embarrassed Helion. Anyways, shouldn't you girls go already? Don't you have things to do back in Muriel? Helion coughed embarrassingly and urged them to go back to the Elven continent. He hoped that he could forget about that dark history of his. Hee, why don't we talk a bit more about Saika? Maybe you'll want to come with us to Muriel and catch up with her. Aram teased with a grin. After joking around a bit more, Shiro and Aram left for the teleport shrine while Helion escorted them. Well then, I'll send you a message when I can make better armor as compensation. Helion chuckled. All right, I wait for your good news. Shiro waved her hands lightly. Are you sure you don't want to join us? Aram grinned. Just go already. Helion rolled his eyes. Activating the teleport shrine, their figures flickered for a moment before disappearing. Shaking his head, Helion smiled and left the area. ####. As for Shiro and Aram, by the time they opened their eyes, they found themselves in the teleport shrine located in Muriel. I need to go to the toilet first. Give me a moment. Shiro turned to Aram. All right, I'll wait here. Making her way to the toilets, Shiro changed her appearance back to what she looked like as Nitri. After all, the elders didn't know about her original form. I'm back, Shiro called out. Looking over, Aram looked at her in confusion. Shiro, she called out in confusion. Yup. You see, I need to hide my appearance a little since the elders don't know what I look like. Shiro whispered into her ear. Right? You know, that just gives me more evidence that you're you-know-what. Aram raised an eyebrow. Think what you want. Let's go, Shiro chuckled. Making her way to the castle, Shiro greeted the guards and told them that Aram was one of her party members. Understood. I'll notify the elders. The guards nodded since they've all received information regarding Shiro and her party. They knew that they were the third princess's friends. Thank you. Shiro smiled. After greeting the guards, she led Aram to their room, but saw that it was empty. Seems like the party is out leveling up right now. I see. Can you show me to the library then? Aram asked curiously. Sure. I need to go there anyways. Shiro nodded since Azul did ask her to visit often. She decided that while she had the chance, she'll talk to her and see if she could find out more about where she was currently. That's why she could at least start planning on how she'll save her. Showing Aram to the library, she excused herself and left the place for a short while. In reality, she had just made her way to the top floors. Yo, I'm back, she called out with a smile. Welcome back. So do you have any stories to share with me? I'm interested to know about what happens outside of Muriel. Azul's voice rang out softly. Of course, I'll share some of my adventures and dungeons with you. Shiro nodded and sat down. For the next hour or so, she shared stories about the quests that she's gone to, especially the one where she had found Lysandra. Shiro talked to Azul for a good hour before she felt tired once more. Bidding farewell, she made her way back to Aram. Of course, she made it seem like she returned from outside the room, or else it might raise some unneeded questions such as why she has access to floors that are only available for elders. How goes your research? Shiro asked with curiosity. Amen? Oh, it's going pretty well. There are a bunch of theories regarding the dungeons, and it even contains a few experiments that haven't been disclosed to the public yet. Though I have to take everything with a grain of salt, since there may be fabrications within these documents. Aram shrugged. I see. Well, let's head back. The party should have returned by now. Shiro smiled as Aram agreed. When they were on their way back, they saw the party enter the room. Yo, I'm back, Shiro called out. Shiro, welcome BA-. Wait, Shiro, why is Aram here? Madison furrowed her brows. She's joining our party for now. Shiro chuckled. Heya, there are a few unfamiliar faces, so I'll introduce myself. My name's Aram, my hobby is tailoring, and I made all of their outfits. I like to research to satisfy my curiosity, and one of my current research targets is Shiro. Aram smiled. Mum's precious baby. Popped her head around the corner. Lysandra, Mum's second daughter. Lysandra gave her a small wave. Chinyu, currently assisting this party on behalf of my branch master who Shiro calls a merchant, Chinyu said while massaging his shoulders. What? Aram blinked a few times while looking at who is essentially a mini version of Shiro. Let me explain. Bird who can't stop eating and is essentially a parasite, an adopted daughter who is more filial than this bird who is technically blood-related, and Chunyu. Shiro gestured one by one. Wait, bird. She's that tiny purple bird that you had on your head. Aram raised an eyebrow. Gah? What bird? This baby is a phoenix. Ian pouted while Lysandra smacked her on the head gently. A phoenix is still a bird, big sis. Lysandra retorted with a small smile. All right, you two. Go rest. You seem to have had a rough day. Shiro chuckled. Amen. Lysandra nodded. Gesturing for Aram to come into the room, they informed Aram of the current situation. Lysandra, Ian, Chunyu, and Sylvia didn't join in the conversation since they were extremely tired. Leaning back in her chair, Aram took a moment to digest everything she had learned. Naturally, Shiro made sure that Lysandra and Madison didn't give away the fact that she was a spirit and the existence of Azul. So we're just waiting for the response of the elders then? She asked. Yup. In the meantime, the party is trying to level up as fast as they can. Shiro nodded. I can see why you would need that. For a capital full of level 100s of different factions, and you who essentially wants to take over this country, it's akin to a death trap. But even if you level up as quick as you can, with how things are progressing, are you sure that you can get to level 100 in time to actually make a difference? Aram frowned. Nope. What we're trying to do right now is increasing our chances of success. Even for us, getting to level 100 within the time constraint would be quite a daunting task, especially since all the high-level dungeons, which are level 75 plus, are under the watch of other princes and factions. Should we farm in all the dungeons that are below level 75, who knows how long it will take? Shiro shrugged. That's true. But still, if the plan is to go successfully, you'll still have to face against high-level people at some point. Oh, there are a few ways. Shiro grinned coldly. With the 4 level 100 puppets that were in the process of being converted, she could easily lay traps and assassinate the people that she wanted to kill. While the conversion would weaken their powers as level 100s, as long as she was able to pull off the assassination correctly, that weakness would not matter. Well, it's getting a bit late now, so you should rest. There isn't a spare bed, so you'll have to make do for no wait. Can't we just kick Chinyu off the bed and have him sleep on the sofa? Shiro asked as she slowly turned to the sleeping Chinyu at the corner of the bed, away from all the girls. Forget it. I'll get Annie to bring us a spare bed tomorrow. Shiro shrugged. In the end, they settled with Aram sleeping on the sofa and handed her some pillows and a duvet. After setting up her makeshift bed, Aram glanced over at the party and activated her skill. She was curious as to what their true nature was. Ian was that of a graceful phoenix whose feathers seemed like purple flames. But for some odd reason, it seemed to be drooling uncontrollably. Raising an eyebrow, she glanced at Lysandra. Her nature was in the form of a swordswoman who had 2 pairs of wings on her back. However, the wings were slowly turning black. Is she similar to a fallen angel? Aram thought to herself. Looking at the remaining members, she saw that they were more normal. Normal was a stretch since Sylvia's nature was that of a healer in priest robes, while a giant greatsword was strapped to her back. Smiling softly, she was quite happy with the state of their nature. After all, the more corrupted a person was, the more twisted the image of their nature would be. In New York, she had even done some cleaning up near her apartment after doing some background checks on her targets, which only lead to the problem of Shiro's nature. It had no definite image. For someone like Shiro, why is her nature so creepy? Is the black fog a result of it being twisted to the extreme? She did have a ridiculous amount of killing intent when she saw the statue after all. For someone with so much killing intent, it would be weird if their nature wasn't twisted. She thought to herself. However, what creeped her out was that it wasn't the full nature. It was akin to jumping into a shallow pool while there was a deep end on the other side. She knew that she could go deeper to see the true nature, but something was blocking this. Whether this be because her skill wasn't strong enough yet or the fact that she subconsciously didn't want to find out, Aram knew that after going to the deep end, there was a slim chance to escape. From the records of Shino, it was stated that it was a snow girl. Snow girls are beings that manifest from negative emotion. Could the fact that her negative emotion is the foundation of her body, which results in the twisted nature? Aram asked herself as she slowly fell asleep. Little did she know, Shiro's nature had been watching her this entire time. ###. The next morning, before the party could even set off to go to another dungeon run, they heard a knock on the door. "Come in," Shiro called out while giving her body a light stretch. Opening the door, Annie walked in with a smile and bowed lightly. "The elders have come to a decision and wishes to see you in their private hall." "I got it. Would you mind leading the way?" Shiro smiled. "Of course. Follow me." Annie nodded. Walking through the corridors, Shiro noticed a pair of eyes tracking their party. "Observers, huh?" she thought with a smile. On the next step she took, a single nanobot was created and dug through the floors. Skittering through the floors, it arrived beside the observer and entered his body through the legs. Suddenly feeling a prick on his leg, the observer quickly checked his body for any abnormalities but found nothing. Realizing that her nanobot had been planted successfully, Shiro smiled. Fifth puppet, she thought to herself. However, she wasn't going to start the conversion just yet since whoever had sent him will notice the difference. She'll have to wait until he returns. Little by little, she'll change him so that it seemed natural. After all, a spy couldn't be caught quickly. Arriving at the elders' private quarters, Shiro saw two girls sitting next to the elders and recognized them to be the princesses. "So then, I heard that you have agreed to my proposal." Shiro called out with a smile. "Yes, we've thought it over and decided that it's the best course of action right now. Next to me are the two princesses, and they'll be assisting us on our quest." One of the elders nodded. "Girls, introduce yourselves. My name is Civi Valenstein, currently level 98 High Elf Enchantress." Civi smiled and bowed. She had short blonde hair that was swept to the side, and her outfit was similar to Sylvia's priest robes. "Cyril Valenstein. Nice to meet you." Cyril bowed with a grin. "Cyril, your class." The elders smiled softly. "All right. Level 93 Ascended Combat Medic." Cyril corrected herself. She was on the shorter side and had long blonde hair that reached her hips. Her hair was on the slightly wilder side with a flick of hair on the very top. Looking at that flick of hair, Shiro raised an eyebrow and had the sudden urge to either smooth it back down or give it a tug. "So what are you thinking right now that involves introducing the princesses to us?" Shiro asked. "You see, everyone knows that the two princesses will support whoever wins the throne in the end. Them showing support to a prince early is akin to us, the elders, favoring one of the candidates. If we follow what you have planned so far, the first and second prince will find out our supposed favoritism towards the third prince. This will hopefully provoke them to make a move early," one of the elders said while sipping some tea. Looking at the princesses, Shiro narrowed her eyes in suspicion. Do they desire the legacy themselves? What motive do they have to help us? She thought to herself. But from the looks of things, she knew that she wasn't going to get an answer so soon. She'll have to wait and keep an eye on them. "Is it okay if I chip in with one of my thoughts?" Aram called out. "Sure. Feel free to share your thoughts." The elder nodded since they were open to suggestions that may help the country. "How much urgency do we want the princes to feel? If we were to make our support more apparent and give the third prince more power, it'll give the other princes more urgency and throw them into complete war. But if we don't make them feel enough urgency, we're just going to be powering up the third prince and making him more of a competitor." Aram reminded. We can't make the situation too urgent since we don't exactly have the manpower to keep up." Shiro furrowed her brows. "Then how about we show a little surface support, then follow it up with some support in the background? The princes will happen to find out and urge their followers to speed up plans while not making a move just yet," one of the elders suggested. "That's as a possible choice." Shiro nodded. "We'll do that for now then. On the surface, we'll allocate more resources and potions for the third prince to nurture his follows. While in the shadows, we'll provide him with some extra support such as weapons or armor." The elder nodded. Agreeing upon their current plan, they discussed a few situations that may happen along with actions that they should take. "By the way, big sis, what are you going to do about Dad's legacy? You are his favorite after all." Cyril asked curiously. Well, I don't know much about it." Lyrica shook her head and looked towards the elders. "About that, it's currently being monitored by your brothers, so we'll have to wait till nightfall. If we can silence the guards for a short while, we'll be able to send you to the inheritance and see if you can claim it," one of the older elders replied. About the silencing part, leave it to me, I can sort it out," Shiro offered with a smile. "Don't kill them." Aram, Madison, and Lyrica called out at the same time. Oi, I'm not that bloodthirsty, you know. Shiro's smile twitched slightly. Well, your nature says differently. Aram retorted in her mind since she could clearly see the figure getting excited. I'm only gonna knock them out. Killing them would only bring annoying trouble. Shiro rolled her eyes. Even she knew that the consequences of killing them would spark a premature war. Then that's settled. We'll be going into the inheritance area at nightfall. Cyril will follow you as a guide so that you know where to go. The elders smiled. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Later that night, the party made their way through the castle using the elders' passage. Shiro noticed that they were traveling closer to the world tree. I might be able to find out where Azul is as well. Shiro thought to herself. Making a few more turns, she narrowed her eyes when she noticed a few presences watching over the area in front of them. Seems like we're here. She whispered over. Do you need my help in silencing them? Chinyu offered. Do you think you can knock out people that are potentially at the peak of Tier 4 without anyone realizing? Shiro asked. Never mind then. Chinyu sighed. His advantages lay in assassination. Outside of that, he was definitely weaker in terms of power. Don't worry about it. We can't kill them, so it's disadvantageous for you. When we do get into a war, you'll prove to be helpful. Sylvia encouraged with a thumbs up. Thank you. Chinyu smiled. Looking at the duo, everyone else in the party had a grin on their faces. Be right back. Shiro waved her hand slightly and flickered away. Path of Ascendance, Phantom Path plus Celestial Path. She decided to include Celestial Path since it would negate any barriers that they may have put up as backup. Flickering around the area, she found 27 people that were hidden in various places. 27 should be within my reach. Shiro thought to herself. Flickering besides the first observer, she activated Fey illusions and placed her palm against his head. Sending out a pulse of mana, she stopped all mana output and placed him in a state of mana deficiency. Injecting a single nanobot into his body, she sent out the simulated signal for the brain to fall asleep. Quickly catching him before he could make a sound, she placed him in the shadows before moving onto the next person. While the party couldn't see much of what was happening, Chinyu certainly noticed. What does she even specialize in? He wondered to himself. From what he had gathered, Shiro was able to perform tasks from every class and even excel in some. This only makes him question where she had even come from. Someone like this couldn't go unnoticed, especially if she made this much of a commotion wherever she went. During the moment he was thinking about this, he realized that Shiro had returned. I'm done. We can go now. Shiro smiled. The party nodded since they expected as such. At this point, they had somewhat gotten used to what she could do, especially after being exposed to such on a day-to-day basis. However, that wasn't the case for Cyril. Damn, are they really knocked out? She asked as her eyes widened in curiosity. Yup, but let's talk later. Shiro smiled. Walking into the open area, they saw that the observers had been watching a simple corridor. If one didn't know any better, they would have thought that this was just another walkway in the castle. Hee hee, it's my time to shine. Cyril grinned and walked up to one of the doors. Placing her hand on the handle, a magic circle appeared on the back of her hand. Flickering between Tier 3 and Tier 4 magic circles, a giant formation slowly appeared all over the corridor. Looking closely at the formation, they noticed that it was made up of tiny magic circles that was all Tier 4 in grade. That's quite the formation. I don't think my celestial path can cancel it out quickly even if I tried. I'll need to take some time to study this so that I know all the nodes that I need to destroy. Shiro thought to herself since large formations like this had their own backup sections that make sure the formation continues to work. Much like the time in the library, this formation required extensive knowledge to decipher. Only this time, it was much more dangerous and more volatile. Impressive, right? Cyril smiled. Yeah. Shiro nodded while looking at the giant formation. Having the knowledge to set up a formation like this was helpful in many aspects, especially if they have a headquarters of such. If the person who made the formation was still alive, I would like to learn a little from him. Shiro thought with a smile. After a while, the formation started to unravel as a new door slowly revealed itself. Opening the door, the party could see a pathway leading deeper into the world tree. Let's go. Cyril gestured for the party to follow her. Following behind Cyril, the party slowly descended into the depths of the world tree. Placing her hands on the wall, Shiro was surprised at the sheer amount of mana that was pulsing through the walls. For just the walls to be affected by this much mana, I wonder how the center area was going to be. She thought to herself in surprise. Glancing around for a moment, she decided to see if she could remove a bit of the walls to do some research. Who knows? She might find something interesting since the walls were enhanced by quite a large quantity of mana. Asterisk clack. A tiny nanobot was dropped on the floor and started to crawl up the walls without anyone noticing. Chipping into the walls, Shiro had it follow them while taking samples on the way. That way, she could compare the effects later. Follow closely, or else you might get lost in the maze. Cyril called out with a smile. Say, Cyril. Lyrica asked hesitantly. Emin, what is it? Cyril turned her head with a smile. It has been bothering me, but you said that I'm your big sister, right? When were you born? Lyrica furrowed her brows. From her memories, her father didn't create any more heirs since he was satisfied with her and her mother. But for Cyril to exist, that may mean that her father wasn't who she thought he was. When was I born? I don't know. They never told me, and I don't know who my mom is. Now that I think of it, I only remember things that happened a few years ago. Cyril replied while trying her best to remember any childhood memories. Hearing what Cyril had said, Lyrica paused in confusion. They haven't told you when you were born, nor did they tell you about your mom. You only know that we share the same father. She asked with hesitation. Yup. Cyril nodded with a smile. Frowning slightly, Lyrica was a little skeptical about the situation but decided to hold back on her questions for now. As they traveled deeper into the world tree, the mana started to coagulate into a mist of sorts. There has to be an item that's bolstering up the amount of mana in the world tree. Shiro thought to herself in interest. Out of all the phenomenon that she knew of, few would produce similar effects, and the most likely would be an extraordinary item. The legacy area should be just past this area. Cyril called out as they approached a giant set of doors. Pushing open the door, the party could see a giant hollow room that was filled with flickering lights. The mana density in this area had increased to the point where the mist had started to crystallize and float around. In the center of the room, several barriers were wrapped around a single sapling. Is that father's legacy? Lyrica tilted her head in confusion. As there was nothing else in the room, the sapling was the only thing that could possibly be the legacy. Nope, that's the core of the world tree. Dad's legacy is past that. Cyril shook her head. Walking past the barriers, Shiro noticed that there was a familiar pulse of mana that was being used as fuel. Could that be Azul? She thought to herself in suspicion. My queen, I believe that Lady Azul is currently powering that barrier. Should we trace that back, we should be able to find her. Nimue called out from inside her mana realm. Is that so? We'll track it back later. We'll take a look at the legacy right now. Shiro shook her head lightly. Nimue furrowed her brows in worry, but decided to accept it. Understood, my queen. Making their way to the back of the room, Cyril pulled out a pendant, revealing a giant magic circle. This is the teleporter to the legacy area. Big sis, just press your hands against it and inject your mana into the magic circle. Amen. Nodding her head, she followed Cyril's instructions. Before anyone could react, a blinding light filled their visions. Quickly opening her eyes, Shiro noticed that she was alone in the middle of a burning village. Screams could be heard as bandits were killing people all around her. Seeing this, Shiro couldn't feel a little nostalgic, which confused her. Boys, jackpot, look at this chick over here. One of the bandits shouted out with a vulgar smile. Hearing the familiar language, Shiro widened her eyes in surprise. Aryan, how do they know the language of Arya? She thought to herself. Looking around, she saw that she had been completely surrounded by level 50 bandits. Keck, I didn't think that we'll find such a jackpot in this *T2Y village. The bandit sneered as they slowly closed in on her. Say, do you know where we are right now? Shiro asked nonchalantly. Her question confused the bandits since she was concerned about where she was rather than the fact that she was currently surrounded by bandits. Who cares? Get her. Looking at the person who had shouted that, Shiro guessed that he was their leader of sorts. So you choose death. Shiro sighed. Her lips slowly curved into a grin as she stomped down with her foot. Ice spread out instantly and froze the bandit's legs. Those who had charged with more momentum found that their legs had completely separated from their body and collapsed on the ground. Ignoring their screams, she swiped her hand horizontally and sent ice spikes through their heads, killing them. Now then, I should take care of the rest of the bandits, then see if I can find my younger self or something, she muttered. Jumping on the church, since it was the tallest building in the village, Shiro raised her hand up and sent out a torrent of snow, encasing the entire village in a blizzard. She knew the location of all the bandits since they touched her snow. Freeze, she commanded. Every snowflake that was in contact with the bandits exploded with ice and sent spikes through their bodies. Some of the villagers who saw this widened their eyes in surprise as they looked towards the source and saw that a young white-haired girl had saved all of them. Quickly bowing in respect, they started to pray. However, Shiro ignored this. Searching through her memories, she looked towards where her parents had run away with her. Stretching her body slightly, she leapt into the air. She didn't need to run too far since she saw a heavily injured man next to a few corpses. Dad, Shiro thought to herself and landed next to him. Can you hear me? She called out while healing him with the life fire. My wife, my daughter, they're that way. Quickly, can you go help them? He begged while grabbing her sleeves. Amen. But what about yourself? She asked. I don't care about myself. What use is it if they're dead? He cried out and pushed her towards where his wife and daughter had gone. Please, I beg of you, go help them. He bowed his head in desperation. Amen. Don't worry, I will. Shiro nodded before flickering away. Thank you. Jumping through the trees, Shiro sighed lightly. He is a good father, isn't he? Worrying about you and your mother despite being in so much danger himself. Amen. Shiro nodded as her heart felt a little heavy. While she did regret the fact that he died, it wasn't something she could change anymore. After all, there was a high chance that this place right now was just an illusion. Looking down on the ground, she saw a frail woman stumbling her way through the forest. Mom. Jumping down, she supported her mother. My daughter. I sent my daughter that way. Can you help me check if she's okay? I need to hurry. Her mother asked as Shiro nodded without a second word. Seeing both her parents worry about her despite the condition they were in made her heart feel warm. Quickly healing her with life fire, Shiro carried her on her back and jumped through the forest towards where the scientists had picked her up. Thank you for your kindness, her mother said, while keeping an eye out for her younger self. Amen. It's what I should do, Shiro replied with a smile. Even so, there aren't many people there, her mother called out while pointing in front of them. Looking at her younger self who was quivering with fear while the scientists were about to kidnap her, Shiro quickly increased her speed. Twisting her body, she roundhouse kicked one of the scientists into the other. Sliding back a few steps, the scientists looked at Shiro in surprise. Oh, to force me, a level 75 back a few steps. You must be quite high level, huh? The scientist narrowed his eyes. For a sh*TTY scientists, I was hoping that kick would have killed you. Shiro scoffed while allowing her mother to get off her back and grab her younger self. Step to the side for now and don't let her see blood, Shiro called out as her mother quickly nodded her head. Now then, how should I deal with the two of you? Shiro grinned as killing intent rolled off her in waves. Raising up her hands, a stream of nanobots flowed out and formed a pair of hand cannons. Genesis hand cannons. She grinned. Impossible. Isn't that nanobots? How do you have it? The scientist widened his eyes in complete shock. As a person who had conducted several hundred experiments with the nanobots, he was familiar with what they looked like and how they worked. And as far as he was concerned, there had been little to no success with implementing nanobots. Therefore, it was impossible for the girl in front of them to have the finished and working product. Let's see. If you can defeat me, I'll tell you. Shiro chuckled. Don't waste your words. We'll have her corpse if we kill her. We can just conduct some experiments at that time. The other scientist frowned as he pulled out a hand cannon that wasn't unlike the one in Shiro's hands. Oh, seems like you have the hand cannon prototypes already, huh? Shiro's voice rang out beside his ear. Before the man could react, she had already pulled the trigger and destroyed his hand along with his gun. Unfortunately for you, my guns are better, she chuckled. Twisting on her foot, she activated Phantom Path and flickered towards the first scientist. TCH. Negation field. He clicked his tongue and threw a jewel in front of him. Asterisk boom. Before the negation field could activate, Shiro had already sent a bullet flying towards the jewel and shattered it to pieces. Say, aren't you throwing around something quite dangerous? She grinned. Disassembling the pair of hand cannons, she grabbed his wrist and kneed his elbow. Asterisk crack. Gah! Crying out in pain, the man flicked his spare hand and created a magic circle. Asterisk few ping. Sending an ice shard that was enhanced by celestial path, Shiro shut down the magic circle before it could even activate. Flexing her fingers, she slit the corner of his mouth apart with a nanotech dagger and pushed his arm deep into his throat. Kicking off his elbow, she flipped her body back while also making sure that his arm was securely jammed into his mouth. Turning around, she could see that the second scientist was running away. "Oi, where do you think you're going?" Her voice rang out like a creepy alarm as the man suddenly felt danger overwhelm his senses. Turning around, he caught sight of her eyes filled with cold, killing intent and froze up in fear. Asterisk Pushiai. Cutting him in half with a nanotech sword, Shiro shattered the remains of his body to ice dust. Now then, only one remains. She tilted her head back and smiled. However, she saw that the man had already passed out and frowned. TCH. Clicking her tongue, she cut off his head and destroyed his body. Received, Nanotech Research Volume 3. I can get items from this. Shiro widened her eyes. Since she noticed that she couldn't get any EXP nor their inventory, she had guessed that this was a simulation of sorts. But for the system to tell her that she received an item, it must mean that this was a quest of sorts. Could it be because of the legacy? Nimue asked in confusion. Maybe. Shiro shook her head as she wasn't sure. Turning to her mother, she saw that she had closed her eyes and was currently making sure that her younger self couldn't hear nor see any bloodshed. "It's over," Shiro called out and crouched next to her. "Can I see your daughter for a second?" she asked. It's over." Her mother opened her eyes hesitantly. "Amen. I want to heal your daughter in case she suffered any injuries." Shiro smiled. Right. Here." Looking at the girl in her mother's embrace, Shiro had a slightly difficult expression on her face. The girl's aura was completely weak and fragile. The fear in her eyes along with the way she was trying to shrink her body made her seem so feeble, as if she could just be erased at any moment. This was completely different to how she is right now. If she didn't know that this was her younger self, she would think that it was some average weak girl she could find anywhere in a village. "Is there a problem?" her mother asked in worry after seeing Shiro's expression. "Amen? Oh, nothing. Sorry, let me heal her now." Shiro shook her head. Flicking her hand, a spark of fire enveloped her younger self. Her wounds started to disappear one after another as her expression relaxed a little more. Thank you." "You're welcome." Shiro smiled and patted her head. Pretty lady, what's your name?" her younger self asked since she wanted to know who had saved her and her mom. "Shiro." "Shiro? Weird name. My name's Nitri," she replied. "Nitri? That's rude." Her mother rebuked since she was a little afraid that the girl who had saved them would take offense. "Haha, it's okay. I come from a faraway country. I saw your husband on the way here. He's healed up, and he should be coming now." Shiro chuckled softly. Thank you very much. I don't know how I can repay you," her mother asked since they essentially owe them a debt of life. "How about a meal then?" Shiro replied after a short pause. After talking for a little longer, they heard her father shouting out their names in worry. "Amanda, Nitri, where are you?" His desperate voice could be heard. "Gerald, we're here," Amanda shouted back as she tried her best to stand up. However, fatigue washed over her and caused her legs to give up. Quickly supporting her with her shoulder, Shiro raised an eyebrow seeing Nitri do the same. "Wow, you were quite filial as a kid, weren't you, my queen?" "Well, I was raised by nice parents. I wonder what they'll think if they realize that their daughter had ended up in this state." Shiro smiled softly while looked down at herself. Shaking her head, she helped her mother meet up with her father. "Thank you. I truly don't know what else to say other than you've saved my family. Thank you." Her father bowed as tears welled up in his eyes. The thought that his wife and daughter could have perished had filled his mind with fear when he was running around trying to find them. But now that he saw them alive and well, He never felt more relieved in his life. It's okay. I can't just leave you lot to die now, can I? Shiro replied while helping her father up. She couldn't possibly have her own father bow to her after all. Even if this was a quest or illusion, Shiro didn't care. She was just happy that she could see them again after so long. ####. Bringing the family back to the village, they saw the healers running around trying to help as many people as they could. Those who had died in the raid had a bed sheet covering their body and was set aside so that they could take a note after attending all of those who were injured. Looking at the amount of people who had died, Shiro shook her head slightly. Within that pile of bodies, there were people of all ages. Do you need any help? I have a skill that can heal people. Shiro called out. Yes, please. Our healers are running out of mana, and there are still plenty of people who are injured. One of the nurses nodded in appreciation. While she was healing those who had been injured, the village chief walked up to her and asked if she could spare a moment to talk. Sure, but I need to heal these people first. Shiro nodded. Truly a saint sent by the light goddess. It must be her will for you to come help us. The chief sighed while looking at the destruction that spread through the village. Pucci. Feeling a little irked that she was called the saint sent by the light goddess, Shiro decided to ignore that for now. What are you going to do now? She asked. Heis, I think I'll have to try to rebuild this village or have them move elsewhere. It's too dangerous here. He shook his head tiredly. Well, I'm planning to leave for a city after this. If you want, I can help escort all of you. Shiro offered. She was rather curious to the limits of the quest/illusion. The current scene could be described as it reading her memories, but what about cities that she doesn't remember or don't know of? Plus, there was also the case of Nanobot Research Volume 3. If there's a Volume 3, that means there are a minimum of 2 volumes. She guessed that if she were to find the old research bases, she could find more research volumes. While she was helping out with healing the villagers, she didn't notice that a man was overlooking the entire area where she was in. So it turns out that she was your friend Haisilia? He muttered with a sad smile. After helping out the healers, Shiro looked around to see what else she could do. However, the villagers urged her to take a rest with a smile since she had already done plenty for them. Therefore, Shiro took this chance to hang out with her own family. Well, it was no longer her family in a sense since she wasn't Nitri anymore. Since I've promised you, let me cook up a decent meal for you. Amanda smiled and put on an apron. Thank you. Do you need any help? Shiro asked. No, it's okay. I can't have our benefactor help cook her own meal now, can I? Amanda chuckled and gestured for her to sit down. Haha, just sit down and relax. I can guarantee that Amanda's food is one of the best in this village, Gerald said while giving her a small thumbs up. I look forward to it then. Shiro nodded her head. She had long forgotten the taste of her mother's cooking and wondered if the legacy space could recreate the feeling. Looking over at Nitri, who was staring out the window, Shiro walked over. What are you looking for? Shiro asked. Emin? Oh, I'm trying to find Dalam. I haven't seen him yet. Nitri replied with a frown. Dalam? Is he someone important for you to look for him like this? Shiro teased with a nostalgic smile. Hearing her question, Nitri blushed and looked down at the windowsill. My queen, are you sure that this is you? If I had to describe it, Nitri is like a delicate flower while you're, a violent Venus flytrap. Well, do remember that this is me before I was subjected to years of torture by the scientists. It wasn't odd that I fell in love with a boy. If my memory is correct, he had always helped me when I was in trouble and had a dream of becoming a teacher. Do you want to know why he wanted to be a teacher? Sure. Because if he educated all the kids in the village, they'll be able to go to the cities and live a better life. Shiro chuckled while remembering some of the childhood moments that they shared. Shouldn't kids have dreams that benefit them more than other people? He sounds quite mature. Well, he was the type to always look out for others. Shiro shrugged. Sure? Shiko. It's Shiro. Shiro chuckled, seeing her younger self struggle at remembering her name. Shiro, can you tell me how to be strong and pretty like you? That way, I can help Dalam more. Nitri asked politely. We'll have to ask your parents then. If you get stronger, there will be a lot more responsibilities, you know. That, and also you'll face lots of people who are stronger, so once you decide to be strong, you have to keep growing stronger if you don't want to be eliminated. Shiro patted her head and stood up. In this legacy space, She wanted to see what life would be like if she hadn't received the nanobots. That being said, it wasn't as if she regrets the things that had happened to her. It was just mild curiosity. Feeling her hair, Nitri frowned in confusion. Ignoring the confused Nitri, Shiro sat on one of the sofas and looked back at her mother and father working in the kitchen. It's a nice family, isn't it? Nimue called out while observing the situation from the Manhwa realm. Yeah, Shiro chuckled before taking out the Nanobot Research Vol 3. It was a rather simple book and was barely decorated. Flipping it open on the first page, she started to read while waiting for the food to be prepared. After experiments regarding the fusion of nanobots and mana, we've discovered that it becomes highly adaptive. Whenever a will is injected through the mana, the nanobots will try their best to shape that will. However, without sufficient information, this would be impossible. Hence why a database of sorts should be implemented within the host. However, as the nanobots are highly volatile, the more we inject into a subject, the higher the chance of rejection. We must get past this hurdle first before implementing more changes to the nanobots. Flipping through the pages, Shiro found out that most of it was filled with the information she already knew. But halfway through the research paper, she discovered that her nanobots were just the simplest form of this concept. If one had to describe it, it would be akin to having access to 30% of the functions and passing it off as whole. Does that mean there are higher forms of the base class? I suppose I did have the Nanotech War Maiden as one of my class-up options. Shiro thought to herself in curiosity. Reading further into the volume, she discovered more concepts that had connections to the class. Examples being how it may be able to affect the system due to the fact that there had to be a source for the system. A brain if one could describe it as such. However, just as things were about to go into more detail, Shiro found that the book had finished. TCH. Can't they just finish on a good end or something? Don't cut it off when it just starts to get good, you be asterisk starred. She cursed silently while putting the book back into her inventory. Taking a deep breath, she crossed her legs and leaned back. Since Volume 3 ended like this, it should mean that there is a Volume 4. Volumes 1 and 2 are just as important since they will probably give me more detail regarding the base concept of this class. She mused to herself. Shaking her head, she flexed her fingers, causing a swarm of nanobots to rotate around her hand. The key point about Volume 3 was focusing on the nanobot's individual prowess rather than when it shapes itself into an item. Much like how some mages will control water, if she was to reshape the core structure of her nanobots, she'll be able to increase their lethality without having to turn them into a gun. Furrowing her brows, she realized that trying to redesign the core structure of the nanobots was going to be much harder than she had expected. Much like what happened with her Genesis hand cannons, if the balance was wrong, a backlash would occur and send a wave of pain through her body. Even if she had great pain resistance, it didn't mean she couldn't feel pain. Heis, I'll probably work on it while I escort the villagers to the new city. Shiro sighed softly. It's okay, my queen. I believe in you. Nimue encouraged. Amen, thanks. Miss Shiro, dinner is ready. Amanda called out from the kitchen as Gerald helped her bring out the dishes. Looking at the table full of home cooking, Shiro felt a little emotional. To think I'll be able to eat her cooking again, even if it is an illusion, Shiro thought with a sigh. Gesturing for everyone to sit down, Amanda passed Shiro a set of knives and forks. Well, since you're the guest, you should eat first. Amanda smiled. Amen. Nodding her head, Shiro grabbed the fork and picked up a piece of the closest dish and placed it in her mouth. Just as she ate the food, memories started to flood her mind of when she ate her parents' cooking, from when she was a child to the day they died. It tastes just like how I remember, she muttered as tears started to form in the corner of her eyes. She felt like a lump had grown in her throat as she struggled to talk. Pardon me for a second. Shiro excused herself and quickly left the house. Dashing into the forest, she sat down on the branch and wiped away her tears. Taking several deep breaths, she tried to calm herself down. But if someone was here, they would notice that her voice quivered with each breath. Seems like I missed them more than I thought, Shiro muttered while hugging her legs. All of the emotions that she should have felt years ago came rushing back to her now that she took a break from thinking about revenge. A single meal with her parents was all it took for all the built-up sadness to overwhelm her. Nimue didn't know what to say since she was rather surprised at Shiro's moment of weakness. Not that it was a bad thing, of course. After calming herself down, Shiro looked into the sky. I'm sorry that your daughter had turned into such a bloodthirsty being. She apologized with a sad smile. Eventually, she shook her head and looked down at the several crystals that glistened on her palms. Tears of the Sylph Queen read. The tears that belong to someone who rarely cries. Some might say that these might be the only tears that she will drop in her life. Effect when consumed, plus 5% element affinity, plus 5% INT. All effects are permanent and can't be stacked. Effect scales up with level. I've managed to get 10 tears. Excluding me, if the party were to consume this, I'll still have 3 left. 5 if Lysandra and Ian can't eat these. Shiro muttered to herself while throwing one in her mouth. Putting the rest in her inventory, she made her way back to her old home. Sorry about that. I just felt a little homesick then. Shiro smiled apologetically. Don't worry about it. You're quite young and you're far from your home, so it's only natural. Amanda smiled in understanding. Now quickly eat before the food gets cold, she said, gesturing for her to sit down. Nodding her head, Shiro sat down and enjoyed the meal. ####. The next morning, the chief had finished asking all of the villagers what they wanted to do. 30% wanted to stay while the other 70% wanted to leave since they felt like it was too dangerous to stay here, especially since so many had died already. After confirming all those who had died, Nitri was shocked to find out that Dalam was included within the list. Running away with tears threatening to spill, her mother and father chased after her. Meanwhile, Shiro looked at all of this and shook her head lightly. Turning back to the chief, she focused on the task at hand. Chief, since 30% of them want to stay, why don't we find out why they want to stay first? Shiro suggested. After all, they couldn't force them to leave if they didn't want to. Nodding his head, the chief started a discussion with the 30% who disagree. While this was happening, Shiro helped load the heavier items into the carriages. All of these people were essentially moving houses, hence why they wanted to make sure that they brought everything they needed. Miss Shiro, the chief called out with a difficult face. What is it, chief? You see, their main reason for staying is because of the memories they have made in their homes along with the fact that their family has been staying here for generations. They don't want to abandon this place. The chief smiled apologetically. Furrowing her brows, Shiro frowned slightly. TCH, troublesome. She thought to herself, let me try something first. If that doesn't work, we'll leave without them. Shiro shook her head. Walking over to the group that didn't want to leave, she coughed lightly to get their attention. I know you don't want to leave this village, but think about it. By staying here, you could be subjecting yourself to more raids in the future. However, if you were to move elsewhere, not only will you ensure that your lineage continues, but you can make more memories and create a new legacy. Shiro said while trying to convince them. But then things aren't the same. One of the villagers protested. Looking at that villager, Shiro suddenly had the urge to punch him in the face. Nothing's going to stay the same. After the raid, and after so many people died, do you think you can just continue your lives like nothing had happened? That's just running away from reality. People are leaving because they want things to change for the better. If you just stay in one spot and hope that nothing has changed, you might as well have died in the raid. Plus, even if you don't want to change, the world will change regardless. Shiro rolled her eyes. Aranamacron. For those that want to come, follow us, but I won't force you. You're the maker of your own story, not me, she said before turning around. Allowing the villagers to make their own choices, she helped out with those that wanted to leave. After a few hours of packing, everyone was finally ready. This time, 23% of the initial 30% decided to change their minds while the other 7% stayed stubborn. At that point, Shiro could no longer bother to deal with them. Let's go, Shiro called out since everything had been packed into the carriages. Acting as the bodyguard, she sat in the middle of the caravan and kept an eye out for any monsters or bandits while those who knew of the direction led the way. As the caravan made their way through the forest paths, they would take breaks to cook and rest since they had a lot of people and they needed to make sure that everyone was well rested. At night, Shiro would venture off a little and practice the Nanobot Research Volume 3. While she made little to no progress, she knew that her control was slowly increasing. By the end of the 5th night, She had already sped up the time needed for her to create her guns. A single flick off her fingers was enough to form 2 guns and 2 swords that floated around her. While the swords were rather weak, it was fine since they were only complementary items. The main focus was her hand cannons that had been reinforced. Taking a deep breath, she had Nimue materialize beside her. "You know what to do," Shiro said while closing her eyes. "Amen. I understand, my queen." Nimue nodded before flickering away into the trees. Rustling could be heard as Shiro kept her eyes closed. *SHSHSHSHSH. Hearing the sound of leaves falling, her eyes snapped open in alertness. Clicking her fingers, a wave of nanobots surged towards the source of the sound, while a pair of hand cannons appeared in her hands. *bang bang bang bang. Pulling the triggers, she was satisfied to see that every bullet had been pierced and locked in a nanotech cage. Not bad. Volume 3 had definitely been helpful. Not only has my nanobots increased their resilience, but their overall speed has also improved greatly. Shiro smiled in satisfaction. Disassembling her hand cannons, she gestured for Nimue to return. "Let's go. By tomorrow, we should be at the next city." ####. Sitting in the center cart as usual, Shiro could see the distant buildings that belonged to the next building. Furrowing her brows, she realized that this city seemed to be quite familiar. "Miss Shiro, we're approaching Kamur City. We should be able to find ourselves some shelter there," the chief called out. "Wait, Kamur City." Shiro frowned. If her memories were correct, the closest city should not be Kamur, because Kamur was across the continent, and it was where she had eventually escaped from the labs with the help of the hero. For the city to be the closest to her village confirms that this space was melded to suit her. She had no memories or knowledge regarding the true closest city. If this space is tailored to me, what is the goal? What does it want me to find out? She wondered to herself while the caravan continued towards the city. "I guess it wants me to find Volume 1 and 2 since the labs are close to this place. But I need to be careful since the enemies should be around level 100 to 150. Shaking her head, she decided to stick to assassination for the next task. As a person who had spent a ridiculous amount of time in the labs, she was quite familiar with the overall layout. However, she suddenly felt a pair of eyes lock onto her body. "Chief," Shiro called out. "Emin, what is it? Are you able to lead the villagers into the city and find somewhere to stay for now? I need to quickly do something. Here's an item to help you contact me if you need to," Shiro said while handing him a small device. Quickly crouching down, she flickered towards where she had felt the gaze. Seeing some tracks, she knew that the person shouldn't be too far away. Annoying fly. She clicked her tongue and created 2 copies of Genesis. Tracking the marks left behind, she soon approached an open area where a man was standing idly in the middle. "We've been monitoring the movements of our scientists that we had dispatched out into the world. For 2 of them to suddenly die in that village is quite strange, wouldn't you say?" the man asked while turning around. It's not like it's my problem." Shiro smiled while checking his stats. Rederm LVL 100 Arena Master. Arena Master? She narrowed her eyes at the strange class. But the biggest problem was still his level. With a difference of almost 40 levels, she knew that she must be careful. Well, no matter. As a person with the finished nanobots, we're quite interested in collecting your corpse for research purposes.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.